To get started, we'll create a new project. The easiest way to create a project with Telerik controls is to go up to the Telerik menu. We'll choose Rad Controls for Windows 8 XAML, Create New Telerik Project. That will put us into the New Project dialog, and I'll call the new project RadBulletGraph Demo. Click OK, and I will be prompted for whether I want to use the extension SDK or the binaries. In this case, I'm going to use the binaries. Click Next, and I need to know which components I want to add. The easiest way to find out is to open the Telerik help files. I'll use the CHM that I loaded onto my machine from Telerik.com. Let's open up Controls and go to RadBulletGraph and go to Getting Started, and notice that it tells me which references I need: core, primitives, and data visualization. So let's go back and click core, primitives, and data visualization. And we'll click finish. When Visual Studio settles down, I can see that the Telerik libraries have been added properly to my references, and I'll double click on mainpage.xaml. That will cause the toolbox to display all of the various controls that have been installed for the Telerik Rad controls, as well as the XAML controls. The easiest way to find the RadBulletGraph is to use the search toolbox. And we can take the RadBulletGraph and drag it directly onto our XAML. And that will not only add the RadBulletGraph, but it will also add the necessary namespace, data visualization. There are a number of properties I'd like to set for my bullet graph. I will choose to explicitly set the orientation, although it defaults to horizontal. I'll set the height and width. The bullet graph needs a start value and an end value, so we'll set the start value to 0 and the end value to 500. And that's the range of values that our bullet graph will be able to display. We need to set the featured measure to point to a specific value. Let's set it to 325. We can set our tick steps. We can set that to any value we like. I'll set it to 25 for now and see how that looks. We can take control over where the label is by setting the label offset, and I'll set that to 15. And I'd like to add a comparative measure. That's that vertical line that you can use to compare with the current featured measure. So we'll set a comparative measure to 200. Let's run this and see what our data grid looks like at the moment. That has certainly worked. However, it's a little difficult to see because we have a black line on a black background. Let's see what we can do to fix that up. The first thing that I'm going to do is to set the featured measure brush color. Let's come in and set featured measure brush, and we'll set that to a lighter color. We'll set that to wheat. The second thing that I'd like to do is to add those qualitative ranges that we saw in the opening slides. To do that, we'll make this be not a self-closing tag, but a normal tag. And inside, we're going to say data visualization, and we want the RadBulletGraph, and then within that we want qualitative ranges. For the qualitative ranges, we're going to say data visualization, bar indicator segment is right, and we need to set a couple properties. First of all, the stroke, that is the color for that area, and we'll set the first area to be red. And then we want to set the thickness, and we'll set that to be 20. And finally, we need to tell it how long that area is, so we'll set the length equal to 50. We can create a second bar indicator segment by copying and pasting the first. And this one we will set to be yellow. The thickness we can leave at 20, but let's change the length on this one to 100. And finally, we'll set a third indicator segment, and we'll make this one green. And you can see that what we have is essentially poor, okay, good. And the distance for the green should be the remaining distance. We set it from 0 to 500, so we'll make this 350. Now let's run the application. Much better. Here we can see the three ranges, the red, yellow, and green. Our featured measure is colored wheat, so it stands out. Our comparative measure at 200 shows that the featured measure is in excess of that. And the featured measure alternative, which defaults to an ellipse, indicates the end of our line, showing us the value with the tick mark at 325. So that's the RadBulletGraph. You can see that it's pretty easy to use and pretty easy to manipulate and to customize to your particular needs.